Hello, everyone, and welcome to Harnessing the Power of Workday Extend with Deloitte. Today's call is being recorded. If you have any objections to this, please disconnect at this time. You may submit a question for our panelists at any time by using the Q&A feature located at the bottom of your Zoom window. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to turn it over to Jason Mosier to begin.
Thank you, Ali. Hello, and welcome to our webinar on Harnessing the Power of Workday Extend with Deloitte. I'm Jason Mosier. I'm the Extend Global lead here at Deloitte, and we have an amazing agenda for you today. We'll do some introductions first, followed by a fireside chat with Charlie from the University of Rochester and Doug from Deloitte. Next, we'll talk about the future of AI and Extend with Narendra. And then at the end, Nick and I will talk a little bit about Extend apps and a brief discussion about built on Workday. So without further ado, let's introduce our panel and we'll get started. From University of Rochester, we have Charlie DeSouza. Charlie, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure, Jason. Hi, everybody. I'm Charlie DeSouza. I'm the Senior Director for Academic Information Systems here. Think, all the big student systems, the Student Information System, the Learning Management System. I work directly for our CIO, and we share kind of ownership of the Workday platform across our, various implementations of Workday here at our University and Medical Center.
Great. Thank you, Charlie. Glad to have you here on the call with us. Next from Workday, Nick Nolting. Nick?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks, Jason, for having me. My name's Nick Nolting. I'm an Extend commercial lead at Workday here. I've been with Workday for a little over 4 years. I have the great privilege of working across many of our Extend customers, right? Learning how they're leveraging the application, the types of apps that they're building, what are their use cases, what's the business value that they're getting out of the technology itself. So hope to bring a little bit of that perspective to the discussion today. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Nick. Glad to have you here. Narendra from Deloitte.
Everyone, this is Narendra Puripedi. I've been with Deloitte for a little over 13 years now, and I dwell in technical architecture within Workday as well as all things AI and applied AI.
Thank you, Narendra. And finally, Doug Dorvell, if you can introduce yourself and kick us off with the fireside chat.
Sure. Thanks, Jason. Hi, everybody. My name is Doug Dorvell. I've been with Deloitte for 9 years now, and in our Workday practice for that entire time. I've spent about almost getting close to 20 years in higher ed. So a lot of my career has been focused in higher ed, and a lot of my career in Workday has been working with the University of Rochester. I started on their Workday student journey with them in 2017, and we implemented Workday Student. They were the first R1 university to implement Workday Student. And we've stayed in contact and been working with the university since then. So let's talk about our Extend application that we built at the University of Rochester with Charlie here. So Charlie, I'm going to kick it off with a question for you. So to just kick things off, why don't we paint a quick picture for the audience? Who is the University of Rochester from a Workday standpoint? What's the university size, complexity, and what are the teams that are living in Workday on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, sure. So University of Rochester, we're in we're in Western New York. We're the largest employer in the Rochester area. About 43,000 employees, right? So we have a large hospital system. We have a good sized university. As Doug mentioned, we're a research one university. So we've got 8 different schools, 200 different programs, undergrad, graduate. We even have a music school with, 6-year-olds in it taking music lessons. So it's quite a diverse place and inclusive now of many affiliated hospitals that we've entered into agreements with. So lots of different populations and a laser lab. I could keep going on all the complexity that we have here. It's exciting, but it's for an IT professional, it makes it hard to kind of connect everyone. But from a Workday perspective, we've had probably not your typical Workday journey. I think we were one of the few places that did finance first. For us, we had a lot of aging systems that we needed to replace. and frankly, finance was in a lot of trouble. So we replaced the financials system with Workday Finance in 2016, and then we added procurement thereafter, right into student in 2020. Then we did an HR implementation at one of our affiliate hospitals, and then we brought HR for the entire university. So we got several products. We added Extend and Prism through the course of the HR implementation, and had been, scaling that. So, it's everything from our students and our instructors to our executives and our nurses and doctors. It's a very diverse group using the tool set today.
Yes, I can echo that. It's a very diverse organization, and that's one of the pleasures of working in higher ed is you get these huge hospitals that are part of that that organization. And we could go on and on about Rochester and what makes you guys unique, but you certainly are. So now let's talk about the Extend application and the project, the initiative there. So this was a security provisioning app, or what we called an authorization request app. It let users, the goal was to let users request Workday security within Workday. So let's talk about the specific pain points in the existing process prior to this application. So what was the university facing prior to developing this app that said, you know what, we need a solution, we need a custom solution, and why was it so important at that particular moment for the university?
Yeah, we were headed into our HR implementation, and finance was limited to the finance organizations across the school and the hospitals, and the student was in the schools, but we were moving into HR, and it's like, okay, now we're talking about all 40,000 employees here, right? So, and because of our kind of the way we'd grown up, our request process for security roles was tied up in different help desks. The hospital has its own help desk, and the affiliated hospitals had their help desk, and our university, academic side had a help desk. So we had all these different paths for ways that requests had come in. And finance, we had built a little web app, and in student, we were very tight because the security in the student space was complicated. As we were going into the HR program, they were asking, well, how many FTEs do you need? And by the way, we don't want to give you any more, right? Like, we don't want to add FTEs to support more. We had some auditing issues, right? Because our request process was an email, and our ticketing system, our IT security team, which is a pretty highly paid, very busy Workday team, would get tickets, and they'd have to reach out to this administrator or that finance person based on like a spreadsheet that they had to try to maintain of this person approves this role and this is the secondary approver. So, and all of that was done via email to these business partners. And frankly, you guys know, like, Workday security is complicated, and which is a good thing, right? You can get to really where you want, but it's not easily understood from your average business person. They don't know what roles to ask for and when. So we had this challenge, and we were looking at, like, how do we solve this? Do we work in our ticketing system more? Do we build a custom web app? Do we put our business stakeholders in the ticketing system? How do we do that? Yeah, this slide talks a little bit about some of those different paths and some of the lessons we learned here too. But so we started looking at tools. We really wanted it to be in Workday. We really wanted to take the workload off of our highly skilled, highly paid Workday security team. Like, they're literally pushing paper around the university. It wasn't effective. We knew the business process framework was an option, right? The request framework seemed a little bit too light. And we wanted to make sure we had an auditable process and an automatable process. Yeah. So that's kind of where we landed on Extend, right? To try to take an external process that was a mess and internalize it inside Workday, leverage those tools. We had the approval roles there in Workday. We knew who the cost center owner was, for example. We didn't have to maintain that in a spreadsheet. So it seemed like a slam dunk. And we were hoping that we would not have to increase the size of the team by taking work off the team. So yeah, Doug, I guess that's kind of why we landed there and what we were trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think a huge advantage of using Extend is and you mentioned it, is the advantages of the platform itself. So, within the app, you have the security framework to provision security within the app. You also have all of the tool set that the Workday platform provides. So, we'll talk about it in a second, but that the business process tool and creating our own custom business process with an Extend, that was really essential to what we ended up building. So yeah, I think Extend for this particular use case was a great option. All right, so now let's talk about what the app is. So we've talked about it. It's a way to request security within Workday, and you've talked about that automatable process. So what is being automated with this application, and as a whole, what are the key, what's the flow for a user, and what are the features that are kind of most helpful to both the end users, the users making the requests, as well as the administrators who are processing these requests?
Yeah, the administrators love it because they don't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is awesome. No, so basically the experience is you have a request page. You can request it security on behalf of someone else or yourself. And then we found the business users needed help getting to the role that they wanted. So the first thing you do is just select a service. I just want student roles, or I want finance roles. And then we broke it in further to say just common roles, or very specific, uncommonly used roles. And part of the app is a separate catalog that frankly was a super valuable exercise to make our security team and business owners be able to agree on what the app does in a sentence or two, right? So that was a great exercise in and of itself to provide that catalog. So anyway, you go in, you have the request, why you need it, what's, what role, what's the general, we wanted a description, and you pick kind of the service and then you go to the second page where for each service that you're asking for, you select the roles, and just in a standard Workday table with the plus sign, there. And then depending on the role, you have other data elements that you need, right? So for a student role, is it for a specific school, or is it for the whole university? Those are easy. Like in finance, it's the cost center, or what are those different elements, or, and again, as many probably know, right? At the security, you have multiple variables you can add to a role and a person. And so you have to complete those variables for that role. And then there's also a section that shows your current roles. So you can also ask to have a role removed. So we're going to actually use this tool. We're doing an access audit this year, and we're just going to send people to the app to remove roles that they don't need. So that was an unexpected win. So once you've kind of completed the roles that you want, or asked for the roles to be removed by service, you can bundle it. You can ask for 100 roles, right? It's all in one request. And then you hit submit, and then each one of those roles has a customized business process. And is it every role or every service? I think it's probably both.
Yeah,
we have you can set it up either way.
Yeah, we have a BP definition. So it's a rules-based BP definition where for each service, so for and we use service at Rochester, but it's roughly analogous to products, right? So financial requests would route to a financial specific BP, and then within that BP, we'd have conditions there that says, is it this type of role? If so, send it to this person for approval. Or if it's this type of role, submit some supporting documentation for that. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. And those are so huge, right? That just routes based on people that are in a Workday role, rather than our team having to maintain and understand who's in those roles, who do I email. And then we would sit on requests for weeks waiting for the end user to attach their training completion certificate or something to that effect. So those business processes execute, and at the end of all the approval steps, an integration fires that just provisions the roles on the user. So, in effect, our Workday security team doesn't touch the request for provisioning at all. It's just the requester, the approval chain happens. And as soon as that approval is done, the integration fires and that person has their security provision for them, pretty much right away.
Yep. Yeah, it's really slick. And we'll get into this, but we've added additional features in the past year since we've been live to kind of make it even more polished. And like you said, it's a huge lift off of your access team in terms of manually providing that security access. So we've got about 5 minutes left here. Let's talk about how we built this application. So I was there the whole time. You were there the whole time. We had people involved from both of our organizations. It took about 6 months to develop, but longer. We like I said, we spent time afterwards, kind of enhancing the app after we went live. So let's pull back the curtain. How did we turn this from an idea that we had into this functioning application, and what are the big lessons learned that you would want to share with other organizations before they dive in and start building their own Extend apps?
Yeah, I mean, one of the big lessons is you're kind of in the software development lifecycle business. So what we started with was just ideation, wireframes. I think, Doug, you guys showed up with just PowerPoint slides, and we just what do you guys think needs to be on there? And we had some ideas, and we batted them around. And within the first 2-week sprint, we kind of I don't know, probably had 80% of the screens and the features all laid out in that first sprint. And then after that, it was iterative development, your team kind of banging through the work, our team doing a quick validation and test. And that part all moved pretty quickly. I think, to Workday's credit, I think, Doug, you could probably speak to it better, but you actually found some functional, technical kind of improvements you wanted made, and they made them in fairly short order by the time we got the product done. So that was good. And then, what slowed us down is always what slows you down in the software process, right? Is that QA testing with your functional end users, right? You have to explain to them how it works. You have to get them over their fears. Change management is always a thing. I think our finance team, and again, we went live very iteratively too, right? Procurement went first because they had a very rigid process. They had well-oiled machine. And then when we got to the academic side, and schools are a lot looser, so our registrar was a little bit more timid. She really wanted to understand how it would work, how it would route here. Do people really know their roles? And that's when we got to really improving our role catalog. So, I would say, again, you do have to have a technical skill set. You have to be able to get in there and understand the Extend product, but you can develop things very quickly. It's been super stable. I mean, we had some bugs. Like, who would have thought that an individual would have more than 600 roles? Well, it happened in like the first week, right? So we worked through those things though, and it's been great for, I don't know, 8-9 months now.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. All right, just to close it out, what are the big outcomes now that we've been live on this app for a year plus? What has the university achieved? Have you been able to take that pressure off your access team, because you are live now with HCM, so your user base did explode from a few thousand to 40,000.
Yeah, and that month of the first weeks of stabilization, we had, I think, almost 1,000 requests go through the app just for HR. Right. So, it's stabilization, right? Everybody's access is wrong and they're changing it. And I cannot imagine if we had to do those in a manual way like we had been doing. When we ended up only adding a 2-year term position to our team. And so we really didn't increase the headcount at all. 68% or so of our requests go through in 1 day now. Right before that was unheard of to get a request through in a day, right? People just don't check their email, but they check their Workday notices. So almost 70% are done in a day. And if you go to like a week, you're in the 90s, right? Of percent of people that get their requests done. We've done over 5,000 requests, and again, that's a request. There could be several different security updates inside that request. I mean, if you just do some simple math and say like 15 minutes per request, which is way too low, right? You're at like 1,300 hours of keying in security role changes, right? So, we're approaching easily an FTE just in keying in time. And I think I'm drastically underestimating how long it takes to get a security request done. And, for what it's worth, we're still growing it, right? Where not all the student roles are in there, but we went live with the HR team is fully processing. And like I think I said, we're also going to be doing the annual security audit through this, using this tool. And one other thing that we also build is we have a little dashboard, right? Of like, here's the metrics, and the security team has a dashboard where they can watch for aging requests, and we've added, I think you mentioned, Doug, some improvements around like nudging approvers and making the text better inside them. So it's been awesome. It really has. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Charlie. This has been a great discussion. I do see a question came through in the chat. I'm going to turn it over to Jason. Do we have time to answer that right now?
Yeah, I think we have time for that. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So the question is, how are you monitoring app errors, and who is the POC for resolving those? So Charlie, you can take that.
Yeah, from a truly like a extend app errors perspective, which we don't really aren't any. I mean, I don't even think the integration has really thrown out any errors. I mean, we had some bugs, and so we kind of kept Doug around on a retainer basis almost, and has helped us fix a few of the bugs. And Extend was a pretty new tool set for us. So, we've been growing a team who've been learning. So we have a shared, the way we support Workdays, we have a shared service model, and we have a shared team that supports Extend and a couple of the other platform kind of products. And then we have a team that supports our integrations as a whole. And we have a team that does reporting as a whole. So our Workday technical platform team would be point for any application level errors. And then, like I said, our functional security team monitors kind of the in-flight transactions and might jump in. And every now and then there's a role that the catalog can't figure out or somebody can't figure out, and they submit a ticket, and our team will handle it manually. So those are the two support teams involved.
Well, thanks again, Charlie, for walking us through it. It truly has been a pleasure building that app with you all. Rochester, University of Rochester, for those who don't know, is fantastic organization. Really, really highly talented people in their Workday ecosystem. So, thanks, Charlie, and I'll turn it back over to Jason.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Charlie. Again, great conversation. I love that you had additional wins out of that build, the audit win. So that's fantastic. Just a reminder, we do have Q&A open. So if you do have questions, please go ahead and type them in, and we'll try to answer them during the call. Or at the end, we will have a short Q&A to answer questions. So up next, Narendra. Narendra will be talking about the future of AI and Extend. Narendra?
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, like I've introduced myself earlier, I deal with all things Workday and AI for Deloitte. And just want to give a quick debrief in terms of what's happening lately. Right, last year, Gen AI was a hot topic. Earlier this year, it was agentic AI. Now it is MCP and A2A. So every few months, tech has been upgrading rapidly. And at this point in time, it's very easy to lose track of what's happening in this space and how to keep up to date with everything that's coming our way. In terms of technology, let's look at it in terms of use cases. Let's see how all the aforementioned technologies are just tools at the end of the day that you would want to leverage. One, either to help your day-to-day life, or two, in the lens of how can we make workflows and processes much simpler. So when you look at AI and all things Workday is offering as part of it and under Extend, you could clearly box them into three different buckets. One is all the AI gateway and APIs that's part of the Extend Pro. Second one is the set of all Copilot tools that you get. And third one is the Illuminate platform as such. Please note safe harbor applies as I'm walking through each of these components. But when you look at AI gateway, this offers set of all the APIs that you can leverage as part of developing your Extend applications. Right now, you're limited by how many integrations you can build to an external server, connect the data, push and pull, and so on and so forth. Now you have the full strength of LLMs being available and the APIs being internally accessible so that you can build these external applications like features. If you've seen below, you have document parsers where you can extract the necessary information from documents as you're trying to have document upload steps in your business process where someone has to submit medical documents or any other certificates and so on and so forth. Previously, it used to be a separate shared service member that would have to perform this task. Now it can be very well automated. Similarly, you can now ask questions in terms of report data that you get. It could forecast and identify where the specific data sets are and how you could simplify looking at the data that you already have at your fingertips. The second bucket you see is Copilot tools. The way I would want to look at it is how Workday intends to reduce the time and cost to delivery. These are tools that help you, one, reduce the amount of coding depth, tech debt that you would accrue as you're trying to build new applications or even integrations the orchestrate Copilot as well, and for someone or name for somebody else. Workday now is coming up with a feature where you could now ask for it and it will give you the API that you would want to leverage. Similarly, your integration development is much more streamlined as well with these Copilot tools. The third one, and this is now the talk of the town, is the Workday Illuminate platform. While Illuminate covers all the AI-related components for Workday, the platform here offers a stable surface where you could build your agents and your applications. Like the agent system of record is a place where you would register all your agents. AI Gateway would enable your agents to talk to each other. At the same time, we have developer templates that you could leverage and AI agents now that can be embedded as part of your business process so that you could leverage these agents to get the feedback or any generation activities and so on and so on. Now that we've talked about the overall architecture of how the AI features get broken down, let's take a step deeper into what exactly is agent system of record. Before we talk about agent system of record, let's take a quick second to see what is an agent, right? An agent at the end of the day is something or someone who is going to perform activity or a workflow on your behalf. If it is someone, it's much more easier to communicate to them saying, hey, can you do this, this, and this? Much more easier. Whereas if it's something, you need to provide the necessary guardrails, security, access, and role setup as well in order for an agent to perform as we would need. And that's exactly what agent system of record is. For example, in agent system of record, you could define the identity and governance in terms of what an agent would do and what roles it is assigned to and what security configurations it would need to perform. It's all in one place, one system of truth that is available for everyone. The second component is the integration capability that it offers. So when you're trying to build agents in your organization, you could look at it in two ways. You can build an agent where it is hosted on a third-party platform like Agent Space, Agent Force, or LangChain and CrewAI. You could build the whole stack up as well. But at the same time, you need a means to communicate with Workday in order for this agent to function. One way to do it is you could always have APIs in the backend to make calls, pull data, push data, and work through. While it works right now, every time there is a configuration change happens or a security change happens, you have to keep upskilling your agent. Versus what Workday Agent platform provides is you would now be able to build or even access an absence agent that is built on Workday for Workday. It takes care of all the security, it takes care of access, governance, and so on and so forth. And it also enables the auditability of the transactions. Now, when these agents interact with each other, they can now talk to them from, let's say, for example, an MCP protocol. But then these two agents would be able to talk to each other and function much more seamlessly. The third box you see is these agent system roles. Here, it would enable you to define these agents for specific organizations as needed. You could also provide necessary security protocols in terms of this agent can only perform these activities for this particular organization. A simpler use case is if you custom develop an application, you have to set guardrails saying, as a manager, I can only look at my team's availability and not somebody else's. And this is hard to replicate because you have to build your supervisory structure in the agent, give it the necessary access, or build custom reports to make it all work. Versus now with agent system of record, you could establish that agent in Workday, and you would be able to leverage that in order to make sure when this agent calls, you get the right information without having to worry about what access the manager has in Workday, because Workday already would take care of that particular. And last and the most important concept here is each of these agents are now accessible as part of your Extend application. And as we move to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more into detail in terms of how these can be leveraged. Right? For example, you have a smart goals agent where it will help you to streamline your performance goals or draft the goals for you. Today, if you have to build an agent, if you have to build an application for it, you have to call an external LLM, try to parse, streamline, and so on and so forth. But now you can build an entire talent platform using your smart goals agent and a feedback agent. You could build a well-rounded structure where you could request for feedback and it flows into your year-end performance. You have your goals. The entire setup can be agentified where you have workflow after workflow, where you have an agent defined. You've configured it. Now it's less APIs, more a streamlined workflow that you can make the best out of. Similarly, as and when new agents come in, these are easily integrated into Extend, and you can make this workflow. Just a quick other use case that I would like to throw, which is beyond these static agents that are existing in the platform right now, as we move to the next slide, is I want us to look at something outside of the box. And as we are building these agents, there needs to be a driver on what you're trying to solve. There are always use cases that could be simplified using agents, and some of them could be task-based automation and so on and so on. But when you take a step back and try to look at the workflow itself, a common use case could be like, I would like to request time off, right? And this is something every associate or every employee at any point in time would be performing multiple times throughout the year. And if you take this simple use case and try to double click into what a standard workflow that you would follow and how could you simplify that? For example, I would want to understand what my policy is right now because I never read through any of the documentation that is provided to me when I got hired. So I would rather like for someone to tell me. Usually I go to a friend, somebody else to know. And here you could have the agent we developed that could look at your documentation and say, hey, here's what you accrue every month, every week, or whatever that is. Then I would like to know what my balance is. Then the next question I could just ask the agent. It would go fetch my balance. It would request a time off on my behalf. And then usually whenever I request time off, I have to go block my calendar so that people don't put meetings on my agenda. Set up an automatic response that somebody would get to know that I'm out for a couple of days. And then also notify my team so that I'm out. So all of these is I'm going to 3 or 4 different systems to perform these activities. Versus if you look at it from an absence agent lens perspective, it could automate the entire workflow for you, meeting 3 or 4 different applications and make sure that it performs all those activities for you because there isn't a lot of nuance in terms of what's happening behind the scenes. One quick thing I would like to call it, are we good on time? I can do a quick demo of the agent that we've built. If not, I can show it towards the end as well. Yes.
Sorry. Yes. We have a couple more minutes, so you should be able to demo.
Okay. Let me quickly share my screen and a second. Let me know when you can see. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes. Yep. You may need to zoom in just a little bit.
I'm going to maximize.
Okay. Perfect.
Is it still visible now?
Yes.
Okay. So just to okay, as you're seeing this, right? We've built a quick agent backend workflow, and this is built on agent space, but honestly, the tech stack doesn't matter. At this point in time, all the agent flows are built at a specific level that they would offer similar functionality. You take agent space, agent force, Llama backend models, they all would more or less work pretty similarly. The intent is how you envision your use case and how are you able to execute that is the key here. So for example, here, I want to know what my PTO policy is. going to go back into the system, read through the documentation, and identify what the policy is, summarize it for me. Here's a document that has different policies for each PTO usage and so on and so forth. Once I get this information, I would then be curious in terms of what my current PTO balance is. So it would then go into Workday and fetch what my PTO balance is at a specific point in time. Because we don't have an IDP synced up yet, I would have to provide the ID. If not, it would take it from my federated login itself. Now, went to Workday, tried to pull up the balance, and if you see here, I'm looking at this worker, look at my time off, you will be able to see the balance that's been called out as part of it. As part of the workflow, the next step is if I want to request time off, so it's going to ask me what dates do you want to take and how many hours you want to take for it. And this looks at the API request and identifies what the specific requirements are for the API and figures out what are the different data elements that you need as part of this. It gives you a confirmation, and most of this is pretty customizable in terms of what your response should look like and how it needs to get. Now you see that you have the 4 hours PTO that is missing. And then here's the nudge factor comes into picture, right? Now that you have taken the time off, it's going to nudge saying, would you like me to block your calendar? And in that way, it's going to make that API call back into Zoom, and you will be able to see that Zoom calendar invite is created, stating that you are out of office at this point. And the flexibility you have here is the same feature while we have built in agent space. You could build it in any full stack development tool. Backend API services are what you would be able to leverage. And this is a third-party system where we have built a quick UI UX process where you could ask a question, it will give you an answer. The intent is just to show the art of the possible here. And we've built similar agents across different domains at this point in time. We have a benefits that would support open enrollment. We have talent and performance and so on and so forth. So the art of the possible depends upon what kind of use cases you have. How would you look at it as a current pain point and make sure that it gets represented as part of this agentic solution. Okay.
Thank you,
That's all from my end.
Yeah, that was great. It's exciting to hear the agentic AI stuff, and it's going to be interesting to see like how that changes the landscape in the next year to two, right? And how integrations work with each other and systems work with each other, right? It's going to be amazing to see how that changes. We did have a question for you. I think you answered it in your demo, but just wanted to reiterate from a technology perspective to build it. There's no specific, right? Yep. Perfect. Thank you, Narendra. Nick, welcome, Nick. Thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Have some questions for you. Happy to have you here. We'll start from your Workday go-to-market side, just to know a little bit more of design patterns that you've seen in the market today, and to get your insights on that.
Yeah. So thanks, Jason. So then to kind of summarize here, right? I think customers are coming to us with some common challenges, right? As they're starting to think about, what would we leverage Extend for? What are the types of problems we're going to solve with it? And I think I can lump it into kind of three main areas. So the first is really looking for help simplifying their tech stack, right? A lot of these organizations have large IT organizations. Maybe they've grown through acquisition, right? They've built a lot of things in-house. And so CIOs in particular are kind of taking a step back and looking at this whole IT landscape and trying to think about how do I simplify this, right? Reduce my overall tech debt that I have tied up in these third-party applications, leverage the existing infrastructure that I've already established in platforms like Workday to simplify my tech stack. So I think that's kind of one area that customers are looking for help solving problems in. The other is around streamlining and automating parts or complete business processes at scale, right? So think high volume transactions, things like onboarding or change jobs or writing job requisitions, right? I think a lot of organizations are looking for help in trying to figure out how do we take clicks out of the process? How do we make manual components of those processes easier or even automate them? And then the last area I would say really is around just innovating on top of the Workday platform. And I think this can take, a number of different shapes and flavors. How do we how do we implement a bespoke employee program, right? That we have that's specific to our company and our industry. I think organizations are looking to try to figure out how can we embed AI into our existing business processes, right? And really just provide the best possible user experience that we can. And I think, if I kind of think about how that translates to how customers are using Extend, is that they're using Extend to solve those problems, right? So looking to centralize, eliminate third-party applications that kind of orbit around Workday. And I'm using that term loosely, right? It could be anything as simple as, hey, we built this process using spreadsheets, right, and emails, and we want to bring that process onto Workday, govern it in Workday, secure it using Workday's security framework, but ultimately, right, simplify our tech stack by bringing functionality onto the Workday platform. I think we're seeing a lot around, again, streamlining and automating those high volume business transactions. We see a lot of use cases around the onboarding space, writing of job requisitions, leveraging AI to influence the writing of job requisitions and job descriptions, and then also in deploying bespoke, employee programs. So I think that's there's a lot that you can do with Extend, right? There's a wide range and variety of use cases out there, but I think those are some of the common themes that we're seeing.
That's awesome. I think you covered my next question, which was what are the common use cases, right? So that's great. For customers,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Do you have some more use cases?
I was going to say I could speak to a couple of use cases.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great. Yep.
So a couple that we can, that are just fun recent ones to highlight. So recently worked with a large restaurant company organization that was onboarding a lot of people, right? And they were specifically having an issue with respect to their I-9 verification process, right? So employees would come in day one, they'd go through the onboarding process, they'd complete the onboarding process in Workday, but they wouldn't always complete the I-9 verification step, which would happen outside of Workday, either in, I think, Experian or Equifax. And so very simply, right, we built an Extend application that basically gated the process, right, and made that a required step in the process to submit their I-9 information. There was an integration out to I think it was Experian, that then dovetailed back into the onboarding process. So, made that whole process a lot easier, right? You eliminate downstream issues with respect to payroll when it comes time to pay somebody that hasn't completed their I-9 verification process. So that was a big one, right? And again, that's a great example of something where we're streamlining the process, making it easier to execute at scale, and enabling them to bring a lot more people into the organization with a lot more ease. So that's a great example there.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. So for customers that want to get started, how would you start? How would you get them started?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I think there's probably folks on the call here today that are maybe some great stories, right? We heard earlier from some customers trying to think about, how do we go about making this decision with respect to making an investment and Extend? And at the end of the day, I think it comes down to identifying a really strong use case, right? So what are those problems that you're trying to solve in your organization? Where are the pain points? Right. I think, listening to your user base and kind of the folks that are using the application, are there some pain points that you can help resolve? What are those high volume transactions that you're executing at scale across the organization? And is there an opportunity to improve some of those processes? And are there some things that you're doing outside of Workday, right? Are there some areas where you're pulling data out and massaging it in an Excel spreadsheet and you're trying to govern a process outside of the system where it would be a lot easier just to bring that process into the system and govern it in Workday? So I think that the most important first step is to take a step back and think about what are the problems you're trying to solve, what are the use cases that you would eventually deploy, and starting to come up with a perspective around the value that solving those problems would provide to the organization. And usually, right, when I'm working with customers, if we can find those use cases, right, and we can identify those opportunities, the business case is really strong.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. Thank you, Nick. So in transition to that, these solutions that Nick has talked about, with the new built on Workday that's coming out, we can now package these solutions, right? And package these solutions, deploy them to the marketplace, and then provide those to our clients in a more feasible way, right? And allow them to download, install it, and less maintenance on them, correct?
Yeah, totally. I think it's a really exciting time in the Extend space right now, right? So Extend has been around for a little over 5 years now, and so like we just articulated, we're starting to see these themes come up with respect to the types of use cases that customers are deploying. So we're building a catalog and a marketplace of packaged solutions and built on Workday solutions that customers can deploy quickly.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate your time and joining us today. With one last quick note on Built on Workday. We do have some solutions here at Deloitte that we're going to be releasing here in the next few months. Hopefully we'll be able to announce those on our next webinar in the future. So we're going to take this time really quick. If there's any questions that anybody has, please feel free to type them in. And we'll answer those for the group. And we'll take just a minute or two to respond to any that we get. Okay, we are it doesn't look like we have any questions at this time, so we'll conclude. I want to thank everybody. Oh, wait, we got somebody. Do you expect built-on Workday apps to log to customer analytics pane? Do you expect built-on Workday apps to log to customer analytics pane? I believe you're talking about that's a great question. I don't expect that to happen, but that is going to be a Workday specific question on how they implement that uh, with the clients, right? Because the way Built on Workday works is we the partner, whoever's deploying it and maintaining that application, right, deploys it. We don't deploy it. You pick the app to deploy, right, that you want downloaded, and then there has to be a way for configuration to happen in your tenant, right? So you can configure the app to meet your configuration values, and then um, it kind of it works for you, right? So every client would have to configure for their system, right? And then we would maintain that application. So um, for that functionality or feature to happen, right, we would have to build that logging capability in and kind of design around those logging and analytics and give you that ability to do it. Um, so yes, it's possible. I think there's be just some discussions with Workday too on how we would implement that for our clients. But great question. All right. If no other questions, I want to thank everybody on the panel for joining us. Thank you everybody on the call for joining us. If you have questions or ideas for topics for our next session, please feel free to reach out to our panelists here. Love to hear from you guys. Love to hear any feedback that you may have or additional questions. So please reach out. And thank you all again for joining us.